Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first ever episode of the Gaming Tavern Debate Series. I am very excited to introduce my special guest with me today, Emmanuel Torres, also known as the Sliver Hive. Say hello.
Hello, my fellow livers. How are you doing?
Yeah, and so Emmanuel is actually going to be a permanent fixture of the Gaming Tavern. I'm very excited to have him here. And then we got him, and we also have Steve from the internet. Steve from the internet, say hello.
What up, fellow nerds?
Yeah, so we just randomly pulled Steve off the internet to have a debate with Emmanuel about netdecking versus homebrewing. Those of you who know Emmanuel, you're going to know he's going to be arguing on the netdecking side, and Steve is going to be arguing on the homebrewing side. Well, I'm not sure how much of that's going to be arguing, agreeing, crying at the end, and finding out our happy medium. That's not going to happen. So let's dive right into this. How this is going to work, I'm just going to be asking them a few questions. It'll go first to Steve, since he's the random guy from the internet we brought in. He'll get to answer the question first. When he is done, it'll go back to Emmanuel, and then we'll just go from there. So are you two ready?
Yes,
Ready?
sir.
All right, let's do this. Okay, Steve, do you net deck, homebrew, or both?
I do not actually net deck. I actually started off with a simple challenger deck. It was with Niv Mizzet. And so basically, I had no idea what I was doing with the game. I started slowly building up a really awful budget commander deck, lost over and over. For almost about a week or so, I faced off with some very competitive decks, and I had this challenge. Like I just have this competitive nature. So I slowly built up this deck, and it was just such a great feeling to finally beat these like top tier decks, with nothing but just my own build. I know about the Curiosity, the Ophidian Eye, infinite combos, but it was just something I just kind of just brewed by myself. So I never net deck. I wouldn't really knock on those who net deck, but for my personal opinion, it's just for those who have played Magic for a number of years, just attempt to try to be a little creative.
Okay, Emmanuel, so do you net deck, homebrew, or both?
I actually enjoy doing both. A few years ago, when I started getting into Magic the Gathering a bit more seriously, I think it was when I was starting college. I used to be like one of those, I hate netdecking sucks, you're trash if you netdeck, blah blah blah. I used to be like that, like I swear. And the more that I played in Friday Night Magic events, showdowns, that kind of thing, I started to hang out with much better players than I was. I actually know most of the best players in my city, in my country. There are people that have won Grand Prix events, that have gone to the Pro Tour. I learned a lot from them, and one of the things I learned is that, well, there's a time and place for everything, and it's just like in life, I think. If you want to be as good as you can be doing something, whether it is working out, playing the guitar, speaking a language, whatever, you have to use all the tools that you have available. And so netdecking is a tool, at least that's how I see it. Homebrewing is another aspect of the game that you should work on. And so I do both, and I enjoy both of them like equally.
Yeah, so I guess I want you to expand on that. Is net decking or homebrewing the best way to become a competitive player? You crossed up that a little bit. Can you expand on that for me?
Sure. I think it depends on the person too. I mean, there are some people. I don't know if I had to come up with very quick examples. I'd say people like Patrick Chapin, Guillaume Wafutapa. I think it's his name. I am sure I'm butchering the pronunciation of both names, but for example, they are very good deck builders, right? So they probably got to a very decent level by homebrewing and you know, like just coming up with cool synergies. And there's players who don't really have that skill, or at least they don't have it. Well, they need to develop it a little bit more, and their actual skill lies in piloting decks, right? So these people might benefit far more from net decking, right? They just look up, well, they discover a list on the internet, they think that the deck list looks cool, they want to try it, and they, as it turns out, they understand like the mechanics of the deck quite nicely, and they pick it up real fast, and that's how they become competitive. So I think it depends on the person. Like, some people are good at homebrewing and good at piloting, some are good at one or the other. Some of us are not really good at any, so we have to work really hard on both. But yeah, I think it depends on each individual.
Yeah, so
Yep.
Steve, I want you to expand on that as well. Is net decking or homebrewing the best way to become a competitive player?
Well, Manny, actually, me and him are agreeing a lot more than, sadly, than what you might have expected. But I'm going to probably touch up on a little more what my gripe with net decking is. So Manny is correct. You know, net decking is the method how you probably would make the most competitive decks. You have thousands of players who are constantly refining this one form of a deck, this turning into a diamond per se. They're perfecting the mana curve. It's something. It is a tool, as Manny is saying. But my problem with net decking is it starts limiting the scope of your knowledge of cards. People should start relying more on the community. They have players all surrounding them, that has this vast pool of knowledge of cards, and it just seems like people are less and less, relying on that community. I mean, I've met players who didn't know about Thoughts of Ruin. It's as for some maybe not knowing, I used to play Corvold for a short period of time. Well, Thoughts of Ruin states for each card in your hand, each player sacrifices lands equal to the number of cards in your hand. And oh my God, they thought it was a silver bordered card and all this crazy nonsense. And it's like, no, you guys just, you need to expand your knowledge. They sit there and try to net deck, and it limits your knowledge. But it is a tool. Manny is correct, but the problem is, it's being too heavily relied on. People want to try to make these decks as competitive as they can, but it doesn't make you the most competitive player. I mean, imagine you who doesn't have these skills, imagine trying to make a few adjustments to these decks. You might end up messing with the mana curve, or you might start removing cards that you don't know that are more vital than necessary. So that's my problem, is people need to start developing these skills. Manny's correct that some people don't have the skills, but I think at least there should be an attempt to at least learn. That would probably be more my gripe with net decking versus homebrewing.
Okay, Emmanuel, is there anything you'd like to touch on there, respond to?
Yeah, actually, I don't fully agree with what Stefan just said, and I'm gonna tell you why. Net decking is relying on the community. I mean, net decking is just a process, right? It's not just the end product. You go to the internet and you look at a deck list and it's all pretty and done, quote unquote. But it's probably the product of a lot of people's minds working together. For example, testing teams, like professional players who spend a good couple of weeks, maybe months. I don't know. I'm not a pro player, obviously, but I think, from my understanding, that's sort of how it works, right? Usually there's like this team that tests the format, at least standard, right? Because in standard it is a bit easier to, quote unquote, again, solve the format, right? So they keep working on lists, on deck ideas for a couple of weeks, maybe a few months, until they say, well, you know what, these are the decks that work the best. I mean, sure, we tried to make, I don't know, a card like Omino Seas work. It's fun. I mean, you put a counter each time you draw, and then you create an 8/8 Kraken. Yeah, sure, it's fun, but there's just not enough support for that card to make a deck that is truly competitive right now in this standard environment. So they come to those conclusions, and then we have what the best decks are, right? So if you net deck, you're basically relying on the community, right? And especially on the competitive community, because they've already tested many ideas, many decks, etc., and so they already know what's good. So you're just using that knowledge that is already available, and you go from there. And the second thing is, and that's where I do agree with Stefan, right? People should try to get better at homebrewing. They should try. Well, I mean, I don't know if they should. If they enjoy if they enjoy playing Magic the Gathering, but they don't really want to immerse themselves in the deck building process, and they just want to slam some games, and like it's the most efficient way, right? Like, just look for a list on the internet, build a deck, start playing. That's efficient, that's fast. Some people don't really have so much free time, like I've had friends. I actually have friends. I still have those friends. They are doctors, they are artists. They don't really have that much free time. Like, their job is super time consuming. So they're just like, man, I just want to play Magic the Gathering. Like, I really love the game, but I don't really have the time to, try this idea or that idea. I just want to go to the Friday Night Magic event, and I want to play some games, but I would also like to have a reasonable chance to win. And the most efficient, fastest, most simple way of accomplishing that kind of thing is relying on the community that has already explored all of these ideas, and they're like, look, these are the good decks, these decks work, these decks are competitive. So if you're trying to do that, pick one of these, start playing, and that's it.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add to that, Steve?
Like I said, to an extent, me and Manny are actually agreeing, but I mean, like, I guess I will kind of tap in where this is a small, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I wouldn't say it'd be relying on the community, because what it is you're just taking a list off of a computer, trying to think of the best way to put this. It's very much different than actually playing and conversing with other people around you. We're left stagnant. It's like, so Manny, I know you said you weren't a professional player. I'm not a professional player, but what it is common knowledge is every few months that a new set is released. And what happens is there's all this excitement. There's these new decks that are going to be built. There's new cards that are released. I mean, if you just take, say, just for example, Commander Legends, everyone was so hyped about all the new commanders you could create. Everyone was so hyped that each partner commander only had one color, so they weren't absolutely broken, say, like Thrasios and, Vile Smasher, that ridiculous little duo. There's various other combination or other commanders where it's just the same combos over and over again. Whether it's a zombie using Labman Maniac or Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, Prosh with Food Chain and Ashiok's Altar, Sliver Queen with Ashiok's Altar, all the typical combos. These are very, very competitive commanders, and this is the same methods used over and over again. But the community is left stagnant using these same decks over and over again. And that's where I find my gripe is like I said, Manny is absolutely correct. It is the tool to make the most competitive deck. We can go back and forth. Can it make a competitive player? Me and him probably would go back and forth disagreeing on that, maybe. But what it is for a fact, it's just it's not really involving the community as directly as I would imply. So he is correct. I mean, like I said, you have thousands of players who are perfecting this deck, and you may have small variations in between, but I wouldn't say it'd be the best tool. You may have those players who don't have as much time as Manny pointed out. That is correct, but I'm thinking that's probably a much smaller community than as the Magic community as a whole. I mean, it doesn't take too long for most to build a deck. It doesn't. I would say probably if you spent maybe an hour just to start it up, maybe once a week and play around with it a little bit. You make a few adjustments, start learning what you want to do with it. Like, I found the method to make the best players is simply giving them a commander and tell them, let your imagination run wild. I have now players who I've been teaching Magic, and they became very competitive, say with like Duretti or Duretti commander deck. They making standard decks, left and right. Suddenly they're just so involved making these decks. And that's where all the excitement's coming from, is the fact that there's something new on the table. Like I said, the net decks are essentially, yes, they are a great tool, but I mean, you're just seeing the same things over and over again. I don't find it to make a competitive player, just a competitive deck.
Okay, great points from everybody there. But I do want to move on to the next part of this, is talk about Arena. So Steve, do you have much experience in the Arena realm itself?
To be perfectly honest, I do not feed into the digital beast. It's like putting my cash towards EA. I won't have it. I am to understand, Manny, you have actually played around in Arena?
I borrowed my sister's laptop a few months ago because the laptop that I use for work and to edit the videos from the Sliver Hive and whatnot, it's very old. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's a piece of trash. But it still works. It's my baby. Even if it's a piece of trash, I love my computer to death. But it's very slow. When I tried playing Magic Arena on this computer, it almost exploded. So I didn't try again. But I wanted to play Arena, especially around the time of when was it? Before Zendikar Rising. I think it was Theros Beyond Death. I really liked it was Ikoria. I really liked the Ikoria draft, for example. So I really wanted to play Magic the Gathering Arena, and my sister, for some reason, I think it's because of her job, she has like 5 different laptops, I don't know why. I borrowed one, I downloaded Magic Arena, and I played for like 2 seasons. I think that's how they call them, like inside of Magic the Gathering Arena. Like each season lasts for 20 or 20 something days. I don't remember. I played for 2 seasons. I reached Mythic on both of those seasons. I reached the Mythic leader, what is it? Leader table or table? I don't know. When there's like a little number that appears on your username, and you're supposed to be like the 1120th best player in Magic Arena or something. But what I didn't enjoy is that it's so time consuming, right? Like, you reach, I don't know, you're now number 542. You stop playing 2 days and you're out of the leader table. I mean, you have to be on Magic Arena every single day, several hours a day, if you want to keep that grind and if you want to keep climbing the ladder. And it's just so time consuming. It was impossible with my job, with the channel, with the podcast with Matt. It was impossible. But yeah, I did play Magic Arena last month or about 2 months ago. I played for 2 seasons. And I actually played my own homebrews. But here's the funny thing. I've spent so much time playing competitive Magic with players that are much better than me, and I've spent so much time playing, well, meta decks, net decks, that now when I try to brew a deck, for example, I remember I built a deck that I thought was my own creation, but I don't really feel anything special. Like, wow, this deck is amazing. I'm the most creative, most special person on the planet. No, I was like, okay, I'm gonna play these colors. And when I checked online, it was banned ramp, and it was the same deck that everyone else was playing with almost the same cards. So I think it gets to a point where you've net decked so much and you already understand like what cards are good, what works, what doesn't. You just end up brewing like the net decks, like without even trying, I think.
Okay,
I think
great.
he has. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was going to move on to the last part.
If I may actually touch up on that just for a second.
Yeah, of course. Go right ahead.
So Manny is correct. That is what I'm seeing among a lot of players. Is that, yeah, eventually they know all the variation of cards, at least based on there's a certain set of cards. So say such as like what was it? Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune, it's basically you just discarding your hand, drawing 7. Well, everyone discards their hand, then draws 7. And then you have like maybe like 2 other variations. Well, there's like 4 or 5 other variations of these same cards, and it's like nobody really knows these cards because all those who net deck or at least create these creations of net decks, they just basically use the same cards over and over again. Like I said, you could take up all these different variations of cards, and it's like I said, when you're net decking. Yeah, sure. You are taking probably the best list of you're taking a very small set of cards with similar abilities, and then ignoring like 5 other different variations of each card that could be equally just well off and decks you want to homebrew. But like I said, you basically are limiting your knowledge on Magic, as I would find. But Manny may be correct in a sense. Like I said, that's based on how I'm seeing it. Just my experience with those who cannot. Manny is correct. There are people who just don't have the time. I know very small few who are like this, but it's like they just use the same cards over and over again. Like I said, that's how I'm seeing it right now.
Okay, great. Moving on to our very last topic for today. I've actually brought a quote in from a professional Magic player and somebody who's also a game designer. I believe it was Patrick Chapin, who once said, "If you only net deck, you have no soul. If you never net deck, you have no brain." What do you guys think about this quote from a professional Magic player and game designer? Manuel, you answer first.
I love that quote, and I have used it in many of my past videos. For example, Matt knows this kind of thing. I've already made a couple of videos on the topic of net decking on my channel. One of them was a little bit more of a funny sketch where I was poking fun. The video is called If Anti-Net Deck Mentality Was Applied to Real Life, right? And yeah, that video made a lot of people really angry, right? It pissed off a lot of people. However, there's another video that I made on my channel in the past, and I talk about Patrick Chapin. I included that quote, and I love it because I absolutely agree. It's like I said at the beginning. It's like life in general. If I want to become the best guitar player, for example. Sure, if I'm good at writing songs, for example, if I write catchy, groovy riffs, okay, that's a part of that kind of thing. But if my technique is just crap. It's just not there. If my musical knowledge, about theory, about scales, chords, if it's not really there, and I just think that my creativity and my uniqueness and that I'm so special and I'm going to discover everything by myself, I mean, that just doesn't happen, right? We are not geniuses. Like the probabilities are against us. So if you think that you're a genius and you're going to discover everything by yourself, chances are you won't. So if I had that kind of mentality when I'm trying to become the best guitar player that I can be, I will only go so far, right? I'm gonna need to eventually study technique, study some chord theory, some scales, music theory, counterpoint, all of those kinds of things. And that's going to make my writing, the creative side of music, even better. And I think it's very similar with Magic the Gathering, right? If I spent so many years playing Grixis Death Shadow on Modern. I spent so many years playing Grixis Control in Magic the Gathering Online, Legacy, Grixis Control, and it gave me like a very solid foundation. It pointed me on the right direction, and now I think I have like a better understanding of what works and what doesn't. Especially in those formats, for example, right? In Modern, I know that decks need to be like really tight, mana curve super low, the same in Legacy. Everything has to be very efficient, everything has to make an impact like really soon into the game. It's not like Standard or like Commander where you can just spend 4 turns ramping and doing crap, doing nothing and everything will be fine. No, each format, each deck, they all have their unique aspects, their singularities, and it helped me, right, become a better deck builder, by playing with these decks and against these meta decks or net decks. Like I said, it gives you a better idea of how the game works, how a part of the game works. So yeah, that's why I love that quote by Patrick Chapin, because you need both. If you're trying to be as good as you can in Magic the Gathering, you need both. You need to develop your creative side by homebrewing a lot, maybe doing a lot of draft, but you also need to net deck because there are always going to be better players than you, and chances are you're not a genius, so you need to understand the game on a much deeper level. And you have to understand things that you're probably never going to discover on your own. So yeah, I love that quote. I have used it before, and I absolutely agree with what Patrick Chapin said.
Okay, Steve, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah. So I don't really agree. I mean, I can see what he means. I don't really agree with it. Like I said, it's basically just a tool. But my problem for net decking, as Manny stated, it is a tool that you're supposedly able to help you develop. I don't believe it helps you develop these skills for the most part. If that was the case, then it would be more like noobs versus vets. It would be the vets who sitting there, chastising the noobs. Oh, stop net decking, this and that. No, even long time standing players are net decking. That's my problem with how I'm seeing it. I wouldn't say it wouldn't be no grind or no soul. I just find it's just a tool. Like I said, I just find it's more of a community issue. Manny kind of hit a lot of this on the nail already for me. So I'm kind of finding a little difficulty finding something else to say that'd be different for the most part.
Very good. So just something I want to say before we end it here is I think it was fantastic the way that we had this discussion today. Obviously, there's a lot of agreement between you two. And remember, online on Facebook, you guys were eating each other like alive, right?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I was so confused. My point, as I was saying earlier, was I don't really knock on those who net deck. It's just another tool. My problem is these long-time standing players, they don't create anything new. The format at times is whether it's Commander, whether it's Pauper, or whether it's Standard, just you look left and right, it's the same decks over and over again. And Commander fluctuates, the community fluctuates. There's this rise when there's new sets that are released. There's these new decks that are being built. The hype is up, the interest is there, but then it dies down because it's the same decks over and over again. It's just like, that's my problem.
Okay. Emmanuel, is there any? Would you like to have the last word here?
Yeah, just a couple of things very quickly so we can end this and it doesn't turn into a 2-hour podcast. I think context is also very important, right? Because if we talk about something like Commander, which is supposed to be a more casual format, I love playing CEDH, and I'm not claiming that I'm the best at CEDH or anything, but I do love that way to approach Commander. And even CEDH is very casual. I mean, if you're winning a lot of CEDH tables or even CEDH online tournaments, you're not going to the Mythic Championship. I mean, who are you kidding? You're just good at playing CEDH and it's casual. You're not gonna become a pro player.
So for example,
Yep, go ahead.
I was just saying, I wouldn't say that. There are some very competitive CEDH. I mean, this doesn't just apply to Commander, but I would have to disagree with you on that, Manny. Commander, I mean, there's a reason why Wizards taken a very great interest in Commander for the most part, with all these variations. I mean, look at Anya, World Gorger combo and such.
No, but I'm sorry that I interrupted you. What I mean is that Commander as a format is not something that is going to make you a pro player or it's going to get you to the Pro Tour. I mean, yes, I'm very competitive in almost everything I do. It's just the way I like it. I mean, it doesn't make me better. It doesn't make me worse. Well, I don't think so. I mean, everyone is free to approach anything in any way that they want, right? Magic the Gathering is not the exception. So if you enjoy approaching Magic the Gathering on that sort of casual, janky, I just want to have fun, like, perfect. And I'm going to have fun with you. I mean, I mean it. And if you want to approach Magic the Gathering in that sort of very competitive, my dream is to be a pro player. I'm going to be the next freaking Reed Duke or John Finkel or Kai Buddy or whatever. Buddy. I don't know. It's German. My pronunciation in German is even worse. But anyway, let's say you want to be the future one of those guys. That's perfect too. Like, you're free to approach Magic the Gathering in any way that you want. My point was that Commander is not gonna get you to the Mythic Championship. It's not really a sanctioned format. For example, I just won a Commander League here on my city, and you know what that got me? Commander Legends booster packs, and that was it. I mean, I'm not going to a bigger tournament. It didn't make me a pro player, and I won the league. I won a Commander League. It was competitive, and it doesn't matter. Like, to me, it was still casual Magic the Gathering because we were having fun. We were trying to express ourselves with our decks, and so my point was context is important. For example, in Commander, I think creativity is something that is a bit more appreciated in Commander than it is, for example, in more competitive formats like Modern, Standard, Legacy, when Legacy was a thing, etc. Right? So you have to keep in. I think we have to keep in mind that kind of thing. If you're trying to be a competitive player in Modern, no one's going to care how creative you are. They only care about your victories and stuff, right? But if you're playing Commander, some players might admire you because you build really cool decks, and that's awesome too. But context is important.
Hey Manny, just one thing. I apologize. I didn't mean to make it about just Commander. The only reason why I'm using Commander specifically at the moment, it's just easier to follow when you're talking about certain references like combos and such. I didn't mean to make a tangent about Commander specifically. I'm talking about general formats. Like I was just giving small examples. I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. And the last thing I wanted to say was my problem with the anti-netdecking police is that I mean, I'm not saying you do this kind of thing, right? I mean, we did have some back and forth, very pathetic stuff on Facebook, but I think we're all pathetic and immature on Facebook. But my problem with anti-netdecking, with the anti-netdecking police, is that sometimes they feel like they deserve some sort of participation award, or that somehow creativity and uniqueness must be celebrated over competitiveness or how skilled you are. And that's just not true. That's objectively not true. Like, Magic the Gathering is a game, so there has to be a winner. And if we are talking, especially on the context of things like Standard, Modern, Magic Arena, or whatever, I mean, no one is going to give you prizes for deck building, creativity, or uniqueness, and no one's going to go like, wow, look at that guy, his deck or her deck is so unique, let's invite this person to the... No, I mean, the best players are the ones who get to play the bigger tournaments, and that's just how it is in Magic the Gathering. Are there places where creativity is celebrated and it's the most important thing? Sure, but I just don't think Magic the Gathering is that place. And I'm saying this as a guy who loves deck brewing. Like, I really do, and I really admire people who are better than me at deck building and deck brewing, and I just love like how creative they are. But that's my problem with the anti-netdecking police, right? Like, sometimes it feels like they want a trophy for creativity or whatever, and it's just not the case. And I actually have other arguments where I would defend, like, there's some creativity involved in playing netdecks too, right? So there's multiple types of creativity, so you just cannot... Well, you don't get to say, okay, this is the creativity that I think is the best one. And because this is the creativity that I deem the best, that means that I am the best and I'm better than everyone else. That's the kind of attitude that I just cannot stand.
All right. So I think that we're going to end it right there. We had some fantastic conversations tonight, and it seems like you guys, for the most part, agree more than you disagree. There are some certain small nuances there that you guys disagree on, but I feel like it was great to truly have, a calm discourse without telling people that, they need to use their girlfriend's tampons or anything stupid like that.
That was actually my girlfriend that asked if he wanted some.
Okay, but but no, it was great having you here, Steve. Emmanuel, always great to have you here. This was an awesome experience. First episode of my new podcast, The Gaming Tavern. Tomorrow, AJ and I, you guys who continue to be in the audience for The Gaming Tavern, you'll meet him tomorrow, or whenever you're listening to this, I guess. We're going to be interviewing Sheldon Minery, not only the father of Commander, but one of Magic's original judges. He's worked on the RC, R&D, you name it. He's probably done it in the Magic community. He's an awesome dude, and I feel very privileged to be able to interview him. Very excited about that. Thank you to everyone who's listened here tonight. I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. Stop being pathetic to each other on Facebook. It truly is pathetic. I'm on a lot of groups out there, so watch out. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your night. Bye.